Hello and welcome to This Week at the Movies. I'm Matt.
And I'm Eric.
And since StreamYard changed the countdown music, it really feels like this is This Week at the Movies After Dark or something
Mm,
like that. Maybe we should have
hmm
some slow jam. Yeah, I noticed that that countdown music they changed it when I was doing Roundtable yesterday, and I'm like,
Yeah, caught me off guard.
right.
Uh,
Yeah, it is definitely interesting. Well, you know what else might catch you off guard is the movie we are looking at this week, which is a brand new film, probably one of the more anticipated films of this month, which is The Monkey from Osgood Perkins. This one based on a short story from Stephen King, also produced by James Wan. Comes from Neon. You know, Neon and Osgood Perkins had a really good 2024. You can probably spot it in the corner there behind Eric with the movie Long Legs, which actually made the top 10 of the year list for us from 2024, a movie we really enjoyed. We were curious to see how this new one would go. And if you're going in hoping for Long Legs Part 2, you will probably be disappointed because tonally, structurally, the way this entire thing flows, it doesn't feel at all like Long Legs. But is that a good
well,
thing or a bad thing? I think that depends on how you feel about the story.
yeah. A black coat's daughter. I'm the pretty thing that lives in the house. Long legs. You would. I don't think anyone would expect this coming from. If you think you're going to see a movie by this director, I don't think you know. You just don't know.
You know, I would classify this as a horror comedy.
Me
Um,
too.
and it probably leans more into the comedic elements than you're expecting from him, but not if you've watched some of the adaptations of Stephen King's work in the past. You know what this reminded me a little bit of is Needful Things, which had
Oh,
some
I've never seen it.
savage kill scenes, but
Mm.
also like some true black comedy. And Stephen King writes all kinds of different stories, but there are a lot of elements, I think, of black comedy in some of the ways his stories are brought to life. And that is certainly the case here. The way it's shot, the way it's told, the way it's laid out. I was curious to see how it was going to go. It had gotten some mixed reviews. I think the first wave of reviews I mentioned to you that I saw about this time last week
Mm.
seemed pretty middling to poor. And then we got a wave of people who posted their reviews during the week that were all pretty high. The average for this film is almost 3.5 on Letterboxd, which
Uh-huh.
is pretty solid. I think it's 3.4 right now. But the average at this time last week was like 2.1. So it's like the haters posted first, and then there was a wave of people. So then I really didn't know what to expect when I went in. I loved Long Legs. This is not Long Legs. It is a much different kind of movie, but I really liked what he was doing here. The elements of comedy mixed with the elements of horror worked for me. I am a fan of Stephen King's work, and I've watched a lot of his film adaptations. I've actually taught movie classes for different groups about the themes in Stephen King's work, both written and produced for the screen. And this really worked for me. I'm giving it a solid thumbs up. I like Theo James. I really liked Tatiana Maslany, who plays the mother in the early sequences. A part of this film starts off in 1999 when our two main characters, Bill and Hal, are younger boys, and they're first introduced to this organ grinder monkey, which the first thing it being that its lips pull back and reveals that creepy smile was quite a bit. You see some just unbelievable kills, but they're always mixing in the comedy. After the first, when you go to the funeral and the minister stands up there, his eulogy or attempt at a eulogy,
Oh my
I was
gosh.
I was laughing so hard. We have a lot of fun cameos. I won't spoil them all, but we have a lot of fun cameos in here, including one from the director himself. who gave himself one of the strangest parts that he has a scene where he's describing their lifestyle that just killed me. But I I had a lot of fun with this. Some very savage death scenes in just like incredibly unexpected ways, foisting a lot of pieces onto Theo James, and his reactions are pretty great here. It has a kind of a wild ending, but I had a lot of fun with it. I think if you're going in expecting something of a hardcore slasher, you'll be disappointed, and if you're expecting something that tonally feels a lot like Longlegs, you'll probably be disappointed, but if you're going in looking for something a little different that's I mean, it's weird to say the word fun when you talk about a movie where dozens of people die in graphic manner. It does really, to me, lean into the comedy.
Yeah. Yeah. The monkey keeps everything horrific about it up to an absurd degree that's beyond a sense of realism. Every relationship in this feels heightened. The degree to which uh Hal, the lead character, is bullied as a kid is like elevated to a heightened degree, and his hatred for his brother is a heightened degree, and his brother's nastiness is a heightened degree. Everything is elevated and extreme, and it's consistent though. And so I think that it works. I am just having a hard time thinking like because there's so much detachment from reality, I have a really hard time finding the humanity that allows me to care about what's happening. And so like it's fun to be absurd, but for me if there's not enough, and ultimately, I think Hal and Bill are the twins. Bill's reason for doing what he does as an adult was enough for me to think, okay, that's human. There's a core kernel of like, oh, he saw that one child, when they use the monkey, it kills their parent. So now he puts in plan a motion to make another child try and kill their parent by using the monkey. That has like a core logic to it of revenge and whatnot that just clicked and made sense for me, that a lot of the weight of the absurdity could hang on. And but beyond that, like I can't decide. The thing is, I really enjoyed the absurdity and all the actors I didn't recognize, but I can't decide whether or not, like, you know, having these fun cameos kind of saved or made me more invested in characters that otherwise it would be like one scene after another of someone acting inhumanly odd, someone else acting inhumanly odd, someone else acting inhumanly odd. You know, it's it. I feel like because they cast it right, and because it committed as hard as it did to the absurdity, so it never became like saccharine or moody, or it never left that tone. I think I would give this a thumbs up, and a strong thumb up, and tell people to go see it as blindly as possible. Expect to have a good time. But if you get like 20 the movie and you haven't laughed at anything, this is down. You're out. This is not gonna be for you. So, um, yeah, like some stuff like there's at one point a quick knife slash that is capable of decapitating an entire person, and I'm like, wow, that is a lot. That's extreme. I could understand like a throat slit, but like, oh my gosh. And then just like so many details, like the head falling on the
I
grill.
thought he lost the knife too. The way
Oh,
that they first shot it, I thought it accidentally flew away from him, but Makes you,
Even more so. That means it would
yeah.
have the force of the air behind it. Like it's so weird, but it's again so committed to being over the top. Like I said, the head falls onto a hibachi grill, and you have to see like that for a second. And there's this moment of a character whose death happens entirely off screen in one of the funniest cuts in the entire movie for me, where they're just like, let's see what's gonna happen. Cut to the funeral, like immediately, and the gore involved in how that character died.
The strawberry jam.
Yeah. Oh my
I,
gosh.
there are some deeply unsettling, the trailer and the marketing give away that somebody's about to jump into a hot pool, but it will not prepare you for
No.
the result of that.
No.
And there's a
Oh.
sequence where you see the aftermath of one, but it does not prepare you for how that sequence is going to go. So even the things that you think like I knew where a couple of them were coming because they're in the trailer, that you're still not prepared for exactly how it's going to play out and for the ridiculousness with which how some of these happen.
Yeah.
And I had some fun with it. It does make me curious to read the original short story to see.
How someone got this vision out of it.
Well, some of Stephen King's stories do have elements of black comedy. They're not usually quite as heightened as this, although it wouldn't be a shock to see that be the way that it is written here. But often his stories are about people who are either trying to get revenge or do something, and it goes horribly awry with some very grotesquely violent, unexpected consequences. And that's certainly what happens with the monkey. I think it also succeeds in that it's just about an hour and a half, so it doesn't wear out its welcome. It's interesting because it says it starts being shot in 99, but that certainly looked like of a piece of maybe even a time frame earlier. Some of the people and their outfits and their look even felt a little more dated than that, although I have to remind myself that the 90s is 30 years ago now.
Yeah. And also, even when we jump ahead to 2024, 25,
Yeah,
they're
it
still using
looks
corded phones in the hotel rooms.
well. Most hotels do have a phone with a cord.
Oh, okay.
I
Well,
all hotels, all hotel
do
rooms
they
have a
have that
phone.
like kind of sleek look to them, or do they have that kind of like hang it up on a ringer?
Well,
Like,
if you're staying at something a grade below Motel 6,
okay.
I think his aunt's house was supposed to be something of a time capsule, and that's where the oldest phone that I remember seeing was. Because a lot of times when he's in the hotel, he's on his cell phone.
Okay.
But yeah, it's certainly that kind of adds to the fun look and style and feel.
Yep.
But I had fun with it. I think you're right, though. You have to go in with the right frame of mind, because this is certainly not going to be. It's not the most grounded movie. That made it better for me. I liked this one a lot. Right now, it's sitting pretty high up for me for this year. And we've gotten some interesting, different kinds of horror. We talked about 2024 being a good year, but so far this year, I've really enjoyed this. I've enjoyed Companion.
Yep.
I thought even the style of Wolfman, while it didn't totally hold for me, there
Yep.
were some stylistic elements to the way that was constructed that I thought worked really well. So, and we're only halfway through February.
I haven't seen Hard Eyes, but it has pretty high reviews.
Yeah, I did not see that one either, but curious when that comes out. Well, this is our we will not be doing an episode next week, and next weekend is the Oscars. I will be traveling. So we thought we would check back in and do a little bit more talking about the Oscars, the director race, and the best picture race, because those are the ones that people are excited about. So I'll start with director. I'm going to tick off the names for you. Sean Baker, who did Anora. Brady Corbett, who did The Brutalist, James Mangold, who did A Complete Unknown, Jacques Audiard, who did Amelia Perez, and Coralie Fergeau, who did The Substance. It seems like frontrunners right now are Corbett and Sean Baker. Those would not be my personal frontrunners. I had speculated, and I'm going to still stick with this, that Jacques Audiard is going to win because Amelia Perez, 13 nominations, some unfortunate comments made by one of the stars of that film have cast it in a different light. That was probably a film that as a whole got decidedly mixed reviews because people didn't always like the story or some of the execution. I will say, for being a musical, the music is utterly forgettable for me. But I thought it was daring in terms of its visuals and its aspirations. And that's probably what I admired most about it. And I think those are directorial things. So I lean towards him. I wouldn't actually be shocked if any of the five won. But do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, the two that I've seen are A Complete Unknown and The Substance. And of the two of those, I think The Substance would just barely have to take it for me. Production design for A Complete Unknown. Well, again, also production design for The Substance. I don't know. Again, it's hard to narrow down, like, just based on what it feels like the responsibilities of a director is on a set, who would be what. But I also think it's fair. Like, I've heard such great things about Anora.
Well, and it certainly seems like from a production design standpoint, Wicked's got that one kind of locked up because it has won just about everywhere, including the BAFTAs.
So, yes, say based on the picks that I can see, then it would probably go to The Substance for me. And I guess I'm just kind of rooting for that movie a lot. But, we'll see.
Yeah, and what she did was pretty daring. There are not... I had wondered if maybe she'd win in screenplay, but I actually, when I was looking at the other nominees in original, I think A Real Pain is probably more likely to get that one. But getting a director wouldn't shock me either. That's why I said it's all five of them. I think you could make a case for. If we were going personal preference, I would not give a single award to Anora, which would not actually have made any nominee fields for me anywhere. I'm completely out, but I feel like that's I've talked to quite a few people, and that seems to be the case with a lot of Sean Baker's movies. You either are all in or you are wildly all out, and I was wildly all out after I saw that movie. That is by far the lowest score I gave to any of the Best Picture nominees. Well, let's transition. Best Picture. Probably one of the more interesting awards, and it feels like it is still a little bit open. Anora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Amelia Perez, I'm Still Here, Nickel Boys, The Substance, and Wicked are the 10 nominees. So I think, as is the case in a lot of years, getting the Best Picture nominee is sometimes the win. I thought Nickel Boys was a daring film. I don't really see it having much of a shot here. Same with Dune Part 2, which was actually my favorite film of last year and really highly rated one for you too. It it's weird to think that it feels like it has less of a chance than part one, even though almost everyone feels like it was a better movie. But
Yeah,
I that would be the biggest shock to see that one win. The Substance, I think it's an uphill road because we don't typically see horror movies, and especially
sure.
that kind of horror movie, get the top prize.
Yeah,
Wicked, I think, will pick up some technical nominations, but I think we'll struggle. So that leaves us with a little over half the field. Amelia Perez and I'm Still Here are foreign language films. Both of them have nominations, obviously, outside of that. I think one of them will win Best International Feature. I don't think either of them is likely to win Best Picture. The wild card, the dark horse kind of wild card for me is A Complete Unknown. Because it has seemingly picked up steam as we've gone through, and it got a lot of nominations, including all over the acting, directing, and writing categories. So you can't really rule it out. But the three that seem to have bubbled up near the top for most people who are handicapping are Anora, The Brutalist, and Conclave. Conclave has won quite a few awards in big places, including winning Best Picture at the BAFTAs last week. That is actually my pick for winning Best Picture. I think that is probably, you have to try to, unfortunately, we have to kind of think about who the Academy voters are too. And if you went by the plot and some of the elements of those movies, but I think that will be a hard sell for Honora with some of the older Academy voters. But that movie has a lot of passionate fans, as does The Brutalist. And what's interesting about Best Picture is they do ranked choice. So they rank the 10, and that's how you end up. And that's why I think sometimes we end up with movies that nobody would have thought was necessarily the best, but were among the better ones that probably everyone has like 2, 3, or 4. Just to end up with enough, as opposed to ones that have incredibly passionate fans and incredibly passionate detractors. And that's what makes it kind of interesting with the ranked choice voting. But what do you think of this Best Picture field?
It's interesting that you say that because it leads to a sort of not dangerous, but like suggestion that what you're going to get are the least objectionable results, like regardless. So movies that take risks that would polarize an audience don't have as much of a chance. So I don't know. I would still probably pick either Dune Part 2 or The Substance. I wouldn't be mad if A Complete Unknown got it, just from my personal experience with the movie. But I think by reputation, it sounds like The Brutalist is kind of the award darling. I know that others are picking up awards and picking up steam and whatnot, but it just, if like based on the description and tone and feel of the movie, it seems like that is the one.
Yeah, and I think once the telecast starts and you start seeing what's winning some of the early awards, might give
Yeah.
you a feel, when you start seeing a film picking up steam. Ranked choice is the only thing that keeps my hopes for Dune Part 2 alive. If enough people liked it but
Yeah.
didn't have it number one. And I think that actually can benefit A Complete Unknown as well, which is what makes it somewhat of a dark horse for me.
Okay.
But it will be interesting to see the Oscars taking place on Sunday, March 2nd, a week from tomorrow. And then finally, the 2024 movie season will be over. And then there's already people that are making their early handicapping odds for 2025. I don't really want to talk about
I was just saying,
until much later in the year. But I'm looking forward to moving into a fun spring and summer of some blockbusters, and hopefully we get some delightful films. We've had a couple of good ones so far in February, so
yep.
And we had some interesting ones to close out January, so it'll be interesting. Well, it's time for our weekly check-in with
yes,
Severance. We are both on the same page now. 6 episodes have aired. 6 is what was originally given to critics to review prior to the season. So we have gone through there. I still think, for me, Woe's Hollow, which was the 4th episode, is the best of the season so far. But we have seen a lot of interesting stuff in the aftermath. We get left off in this week's episode with quite the, I guess we'll call it a cliffhanger. It's not a true cliffhanger because you don't have to wait 3 more years to find out. Hopefully we'll find out some answers next Friday. But I am still really enjoying the journey. I think Adam Scott has been incredible. Yeah.
How many episodes are there this season?
10.
Oh, okay.
I believe. I'll double check. But what have you thought of the last couple episodes?
I'm losing my freaking mind. I'm obsessed. This is the most excited I've been about television. I think I'm more excited about this than I ever was about Game of Thrones. So ever since I discovered shows like in my early 20s that like Dexter or like other, like other prestige shows and things like that, knowing that like we're in this like golden age of TV and whatnot, there are shows that I adore, but not ones that have gotten under my skin and created this sort of like constant impulse of like, okay, we started watching Shrinking, and I love Shrinking. This is one of my favorite TV shows in a long time. And we started episode 1 of season 2 and episode 1 of Severance. I actually got on the app and saw Shrinking and forgot it had existed, trying to catch up to the most recent episode of Severance. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's right. We need to spend some time on that because
Shrinking was my favorite show of 2024. It wrapped up just before the end of the year. I watched those. They are both delightful. Shrinking to me is the most underappreciated Apple show. Severance has now become the most watched, and I just feel like I wish people talked about and got the hype machine going for Shrinking the way that they did for Ted Lasso and for Severance, because I think all 3 are worthy, but wildly different tones. Severance, you kind of leave with a mystery box and you're on edge a lot. Shrinking is emotionally devastating. I probably had to chug a couple bottles of water after the last episode of 2nd season of Shrinking because you suffer ocular fluid loss. It's there. Apple, to me, I've said this a few times over the years, in terms of original programming, Apple TV Plus kills it. They put out a lot of things and not all of them hit, but they have some incredible work, and they take some incredibly daring chances too that you don't see from other services. Like Severance is such a weird concept, and you're like, in the wrong hands, it probably could have gone off the rails. And I wasn't sure how they were going to follow up, but this season has been very crisp.
I imagine that watching Severance is very similar to the hype of people watching Twin Peaks when it first came out.
Yeah, that's probably true. I was a smaller child when that came out. I did watch Twin Peaks when I was on TV. I probably wasn't the target demographic, being an 11-year-old hanging in there.
Yeah.
Sleeping my sleeping bag in the front room, trying to see who killed Laura Palmer.
Yeah. Have you gotten interested in reading the supplementary materials like Rickon's book or anything like that? They released 8 chapters of. Or...
No, so I know I'm a little weirder than most. Like, I actually prefer to go into television series without any of that stuff, and if I like it enough, I will go back. Like, I am currently have gone back
Well,
to start reading the Game of Thrones books. My biggest regret in life is that I finished Fire and Blood in the middle of, because now I know
yeah,
that I am not going to be as
right.
happy about House of the
No,
Dragon.
but
I usually don't go check out that stuff because I don't want anything to impact
right,
how
but
it
I mean,
washes over me.
like it's a supplement of the show. Like it's not about, like, they took the book Rickon wrote from season 1, and in between seasons 1 and 2 they published 8 chapters so that you could like pick up clues and teases. Like, apparently people who read Rickon's book found language in it that makes people think it's similar to the secret fourth, what do you call it, that they find in episode 4 out in the book,
Well,
out in the wild, the fourth.
that's also not the reason I watch Severance. So
No, but it's fascinating to me that they're willing to do like viral, like underground kind of
it kind of
supplementary
reminds
world
me of
building.
Lost in that sense, because a lot
Mm,
of like the clues, and they would put out like, I remember they had a Dharma Initiative website that you could
yeah.
go be searching, and that's just not totally why I watch some of these shows. So
Okay. I'm not.
and
I'm normally not going to read Rick's book, but that's just because I don't usually have the time to invest that much. But I'll watch videos about people piecing together things all the time.
I'm just I'm curious to see where it's going to go. There are 4 more episodes left. The season ends exactly 1 month from yesterday. So it feels like we've come a long way, but a lot of questions still to answer, and I'm going to be excited to see how it comes through. I'm enjoying
Mhm.
this one quite a bit. We've had some good shows so far in 2025.
Yep.
But well, we will check back in on that later. Before we get out of here, anything interesting you've seen this week or that's coming up that you want to shout out?
I missed my shot to watch The Gorge, but I will soon.
That's another Apple TV. You know, some of
Yeah.
their original films have still the only streaming service that has won Best Picture
Ah.
for Coda,
Okay.
and that's the only place you can watch Coda is on Apple TV.
That is the one thing that bugs me about streaming services in general. I have Daredevil seasons 1 and 2, but season 3, Disney has to release it if they do.
I'm pretty sure they have them all streaming on Disney now.
No, they do. They have them streaming, but I could only own copies of season 1 and 2.
That's
So,
true. None of Apple's stuff have I seen. I don't think you can purchase it either, which is kind of
yeah.
weird, except for random, like, since they were co-producers of Killers of the Flower Moon, while that's where it lives for streaming.
Mhm.
They co-produced that, I think, with Paramount.
Mm.
As
And
as
you can get a DVD of The Substance, but you can't get a Blu-ray or anything sharper.
yet, that may come out. That one's streaming exclusively on Mubi. Mubi's
Mhm.
another one. They have been releasing some of their movies as well. Well, one thing I'm going to shout out, can't do full reviews because they want you to put them out a little bit closer. But since we're not going to be here next week, I caught a movie called My Dead Friend Zoe, which opens in theaters on February 28th. I didn't really know what to expect other than our friend Ricky had seen it and said that he loved it. I also love it. It is currently my number 1 for 2025 so far.
Wow.
It is incredibly beautifully put together, thought-provoking, some great performances, especially from Sonequa Martin Green, who you would have probably seen on The Walking Dead or Star Trek Discovery. I thought she was great. I thought Natalie Morales was great as well. I loved the movie. You will see my full review will drop on Monday when the review embargoes go out. But since we're not going to be here next week, I wanted to give it a shout out and encourage you to go check it out. You can look for, I have reviews that will be out this next week for the limited engagement I Heart Willie, which is the second slasher film to use Steamboat Willie as its inspiration. That one's special screening is going to be in theaters on February 26th for one night only. So that'll be the middle of next week. I also have a review coming for a movie that opens next week called Riff Raff. And I'm going to see a secret screening on Monday, which I believe is for The Last Breath. Which is what opens on the 28th. So I'll probably have a review up for that one as well. But kind of a fun time as we end. Eric and I will be back in 2 weeks looking at a movie that, my God, has had a long road to get to the screen. And that is Mickey 17, which is the follow-up from the director of Parasite. That is his follow-up film. And if you're thinking, wasn't Parasite half a decade ago? I believe that it was. I think it was 2020, right?
2019.
29. So even more, it was not even in the same decade. This movie, Mickey 17, has been supposed to be released a bunch of times, has been delayed a bunch of times, but they assure us is finally coming out on March 7th. So we will talk about that when we are back together. Hopefully that will be an interesting one. A lot of fun things coming in March. So we will look forward to seeing you then. I hope you guys enjoy the Oscars. And until then, we will see you at the movies.